Meetings Act is on the wall in the back. Public notice in the York News Times. I have a copy of it up here if anybody wants to see it. Reminder, we ask all cell phones be silent during the meeting. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded when speaking. The desktop microphone button must be depressed. This ensures that all comments are recorded in their entire context. The recording becomes part of the public record along with the written board minutes in accordance with state statute. Roll call.
Bethune.
Here.
Anthony. Bohaty.
Here.
Richard Bohaty.
Here.
Dickinson.
Here.
Eberspacher.
Here.
Kuehner. Kuehner.
Here.
Nuss.
Here.
Otte.
Here.
Perry. Peterson.
Here.
Seibert. Stahly. There. Stahr.
Here.
Weiss. Yates.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, I do have requests for excused absences from Kendall, Roger, and Paul Weiss. And Matt, just in the last few minutes, had a family emergency of some kind, and doesn't look like he's gonna make it either. He might be here later, but there's 4 of them: Kendall, Roger, Paul, and Matt. Would you like to take them separately or all together?
I'm going to excuse all 4 absences.
Sorry. Been moved and seconded. Comments, questions? Roll call.
Anthony.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Eberspacher.
Yes.
Kuehner.
Yes.
Nuss.
Yes.
Otte.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Stahly. Yes. Stahr.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Bethune.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Adoption of agenda. Agenda is before you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I would so move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Roll call.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Eberspacher.
Yes.
Kuehner.
Yes.
Nuss.
Yes.
Otte.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Stahly. Yes. Stahr.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Bethune.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
I guess we do have an honored guest back there, Ron Slonchek. I believe you're a former board member, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Minutes from the March meeting are for you. Is there a motion to accept them?
I move to. Okay, go ahead.
Second. Second. They're moved and seconded. Is there any corrections? Additions? Roll call.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Eberspacher.
Yes.
Kuehner.
Yes.
Nuss.
Yes.
Otte.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Stahly. Abstain. Stahr.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Bethune.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Now, a month ago, we had a written report from EA Engineering, and we've been asked them to come explain that to us. I believe most of you remember Rodney, and he has Rob Lutz with him. Gentlemen, you can have the floor.
All right, thanks for having us. I'm Rob Lutz with EA Engineering, and along with Rodney, I'm here to talk to you about the project that we did to look at grant funding for Recharge Lake for the rehabilitation of that. Last month, as you said, we submitted the report, so we're just here to kind of go over some of those findings and then also answer any questions you might have. As I said, I'm Ron Lutz. I was the project manager for this. I'm a professional engineer. I've been working on natural resources projects for the last couple decades. Worked on a lot of different kind of projects, but lake rehab are one of my favorite types. So it's been fun to look at. I think you all know Rodney. Rodney led the grant research for this project, so he did a bulk of the work since it was a grant research project. So the reason for this is the Bruce Anderson rec area has been, well used for many years, but declining water qualities made it not quite the premier fishing destination that it used to be. So I know you guys have had a couple different plans and studies to look at improvements to the lake and the surrounding rec area. And so this project is to research potential funding options and look at what a timeline could look like and how those funding options could be combined to help you pay for rehab of the lake and improvements to the rec area. We discussed with NRD staff, and not only with improving the fishing and the water quality in the lake, they also are interested in improving the rec opportunities around the lake. So when we were looking for grants, the first thing we did was look at the two studies, the water quality management plan and the water quality improvement study. And then based on those alternatives that were in there for lake rehab, that helped us figure out what grants we should look at that would be a good fit, that would meet your needs, and then also looking at what would have the best return on investment for you. Those needs that we're talking about there were the recreational enhancements, the aquatic habitat improvements, the upland habitat improvements, water quality of the lake. So to do that, we're looking at doing some dredging as well as BMPs in the watershed. So we focus on like I said, those two alternatives, one from the water quality management plan and one from the water quality implementation study. And the reason we did use those was they are what was available and has some good cost estimates that you guys pay to get a lot of work done. So between the two options, they're fairly similar. The biggest difference is the one from the 2020 plan. Doesn't have quite as many features in it. It doesn't have the floating treatment wetlands, the shoreline protection, or the aquatic habitat structures. But other than that, they're very similar. The 2020 alternative had a cost estimate of about 4.8 million, and the 2024 one out of the water quality improvement study that had a cost of about 6.2 million. Like I said, the evaluation of those alternatives weren't necessarily to pick what was best or anything like that. It was just to educate us on one, what kind of features we should be looking to fund, but then also what's a rough order of magnitude cost. So that was the purpose of evaluating that. And then on top of that, we were also looking at some of those rec improvements as well, like shade structures. There was a lot of different suggestions that the staff had, and we looked at a lot of those things. So as we were looking through all these grants, we wanted to make sure we did a comprehensive search. So we used a proprietary funding database. We used our internal grants tracking system. We also, looked at state and federal governments, have notifications, they have websites, all that. So we did a lot of research there, as well as just past experience looking for grants and obtaining grants for clients, as well as just internal expertise on which grants have been good to work with, basically. And we have not just Rodney and myself, we had Heather Young, who helps people across the country get grants. So we were able to look maybe at some things that weren't the same ones that everybody tends to always go for around here. With that, we did initially identify 120, and we narrowed that down to 60 funding opportunities that align with the goals of the project. And then, so 60, still a big number, so the strategy to kind of figure out which ones would be best is Rodney developed a scoring rubric, and we looked at, what was the cost share? So how much would the NRD, that if they would be, if that grant would be willing to pay for a larger percentage, score higher. We looked at things like administrative effort that would be required for the NRD, as well as what was the total amount of funding that's available, and what would be the likeliness of getting that funding. So I'll let Rodney talk a little bit more about his approach and method.
Are we out of our 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Rob was talking about some strategies, so if you're kind of following along up here. A few things we kind of suggested, because I mean, there's tons of funding, it's just not all that fits, and you may not want to even go after it, there's strings attached. Sometimes you can't match it, it's not available to governments, so you got to kind of, going through all this to kind of filter this out. So a couple of things we suggested on strategies, and we talked to the staff a little bit too, to kind of mine this out. Master planning, having that comprehensive vision, and kind of developing that plan for the entire lake and recreation area, and determining what it is you want to do in a big picture. What's kind of that long-term view, and then being able to prioritize in those BMPs or other practices that you want to do. Because some of them, we can hold off, some of them we want to get done, some we have to get done. And then sequencing those. And what I mean by that is looking at dependencies. What do I have to do before I can start on the next one? I have to finish this first. So for instance, if you wanted to kind of repopulate the fishery, you probably have to take care of the water quality, then you have got to stop the sediment load coming in. So you kind of got to work backwards and see what do we need to do first. That'll kind of help you inform your funding strategy. So, when you're going out there, it looks great, free money, right? And then you start looking into some of these, you find out, I'm not so sure that's really a good one. Maybe we want to wait, fund it ourselves, those types of things. And then we suggested kind of this idea of like stacking or grading the grants. It means you kind of use multiple grants, and stacking, you kind of pick out an individual BMP and you just fund that, and you add those together to kind of complete the project. And in the grading, you kind of weave them together. So you create multiple grant strategy that maybe they overlap, and you're actually going to fund the larger project. It takes a lot more administrative effort. So, there's always kind of trade-offs on those. And the other thing was partnering and collaborating. Some of these grants are only available to nonprofits, so you would not be qualified to be able or eligible for that. So you could partner with some of these 501c3 organizations, and then also looking at donations and technical assistance. We've got some local businesses here that I know they've donated materials, supplies, help, for other projects, or the technical assistance. I don't know if Josh is here or not, with NRCS. They may not provide money, but they've got some engineering assistance they can provide. I didn't call him and ask him, and he said, that's always something you can ask for. And then leveraging community resources and projects. So what I mean by that is talking to your Chamber of Commerce. You guys have a Your Community Foundation here and Development Corporation. They may have their own funding options here and availability, or they can kind of hook you up with people. And then I know there's some other projects that are ongoing. Sometimes you can kind of partner in with maybe a roads project or a trails project and kind of hook into that. There can be an economy of scale benefit also that comes with that. So just some strategies that we suggested looking at as you start to look at a way to fund, all these different BMPs because that's pretty expensive. You're talking 4.8 or 6.1,
6.2.
6.2. So, you got to find a way to kind of whittle that down. And here's the rubric that Rob was talking about. If you can see, it's a little small on here, but basically it's kind of a 1 through 3, with 3 being the highest. And we talked to the staff, like, what's most important? If you're gonna go after funding, what are you gonna look at? Why would you choose one over the other? And these things kind of emerge. You know, the match amount, match and amount, are they gonna require a match? So if it was a lot of match required, that scored lower. Geographic scope, they kind of like the idea of something more focused on NRDs or on Nebraska that had a higher score. Funding amounts, of course, more money you can get, the better, so that would score higher. Level of effort, as Rob mentioned, if there's a bunch of, red tape and strings attached, you really want to bother, is the application just enormous, that it's just not worth the effort? And then the eligibility, are you really eligible? Sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. And are you eligible as an NRD alone, which is a preference, or do you have to partner with some kind of organization? And the result were these little tables for each of these 5 areas that we identify, and we'll talk about those. I think Rob mentioned those earlier too. This is an example of the aquatic habitat collection of practices that you might want to implement. And these are some of the funding sources that match that best. You can kind of see they are scored and ranked. And even though we scored it, we still ended up with, I think, 10 on our priority list. And of those, what we did was we took kind of the median score, anything that hit the median above, actually kind of made the priority list. And then we went ahead and added some additional details to these, kind of help the staff focus just a little bit. So what kind of results did we get from this? I think you saw this is the cover on here of the report. And basically we got this comprehensive matrix. It's huge. I mean, it's so big. We weren't sure how to make it manageable. There's a lot of things that you might be eligible for, you might be interested in. And so we have a comprehensive matrix that's in the report. So as you start going through your priority grants, and maybe, that one's not gonna work, that one's not available, you might have to move down the list a little bit. Well, all that information is available for you in there. And then again, we try to organize those to make sure we align with the alternatives that were in the 2 plans. So you can see the 5 areas that we kind of broke out on here. And for each of the priority grants that we had, we did priority grant summaries. We created little cards that have more details. So if they like the grant program, who do we call? What website do we go to? How much do they fund? Can we do it ourselves, or do we have to partner? We gathered all that information up, and we kind of put it in these little summaries that actually you can kind of take out. I know we've had some clients that like to do little exercise where they say, here's the practice we'd like to do. And we cut those out and say, these are the 5 grant options that we'd like to help fund that. So it allows you to kind of move those around. And then we also have recommendations for both the priority funding options and then some secondary ones, along with the grants calendar, and of course, everything is captured in the report, which I'm sure you all look through really carefully. There's a lot of pages in it. And again, we'll have some time for questions and answers, and give you some answers at the end if you want to do that. I think I'm running out of my 5 minutes, right? Some key findings and recommendations. So we kind of came up with key findings to kind of show you today, but I don't want to go through these in detail. We'll kind of move through this because Rob is going to do a little kind of an analysis to show you how you could kind of bundle up some funding to help. It's kind of a theoretical for how you can bundle that up and fund one of the alternatives. So for instance, on these 5 different areas, we identified the recreational enhancements like trails, camping, access and amenities. Here's some of the key findings. You can see some of the primary funding options we're recommending, along with some secondary. So as I mentioned, not everything is available, and I don't know if you kind of paid attention to what's happening. There's a lot of policy shifts right now, and we're seeing a lot of the federal grants go on pause. Some of them are not getting reauthorized. So you may have to say that scored the highest, but we're gonna have to go down to a secondary option. So we've done that here for you just to kind of pull out some of these priority ones and some of the secondary grant recommendations. Here's the second category, which is the aquatic habitat restoration. So this would be things like Rob talked about, like fisheries, in-lake enhancements. The Bethune Parks Commission has some really good programs. It's very, very competitive, but that scored very high. So did the Bureau of Reclamation, Water Smart. Those are fantastic opportunities. Unfortunately, all the BLR Water Smart are all on pause right now. They're getting reevaluated. They don't know if that funding is going to come back through. So it may or may not be there. So then you would move down to some of your secondary options. One of the third categories we have is water quality improvements, the flooding treatment, wetlands, shoreline protection. The section 319 grants through NDE is a really good opportunity. As is the water sustainability fund through DNR. Again, they scored high, but are those gonna be available? And I think the water sustainability fund, did that just end on the 31st, the cycle?
Yeah,
Yeah, so you'd have to maybe wait for the next cycle. So again, just because something sounds good, it's available, it may not match up with your timeline. You have to look at what those cycles are, when they open and when they close. Another one, and I think you're already doing some really good work here on the watershed BNPs. There's some additional funding available, but you've got some cost share. I think to try and encourage some of the landowners up in the watershed to participate. I think that's probably been your biggest challenge. But if you want to supplement that funding with some additional grant funding, there are funding programs out there that could help you. And then the last one is the terrestrial habitat, so things like the pollinator plots or anything not aquatic habitat, kind of upland grasslands. And one thing nice about this is if you can tie in an educational component to this, it's going to open up a lot more avenues. You might become eligible for things that if it didn't have an educational component, you may not be able to apply. So something else to think about is you're kind of putting together your grant package and pursue these grant programs. So what are your next steps? So there's a lot of information. That's, talk about big data and big information. It can be daunting. I think we were able to help kind of filter this down and distill it. Now, what do you do with all this? We're kind of suggesting going back to your priority funding sources and looking at these cards. I know it's hard to see up there, but these are kind of the cards that we created, and it should give you all the information to kind of do that next investigation, make some contacts, check the websites. The grant landscape is changing every day. It's just unbelievably dynamic and super competitive now that some of those sources have gone away. So being ready to jump in there, that's why kind of that comprehensive, view and plan is really important, and then figuring out what your priorities are so you're ready to jump in when these cycles do open up. Looking at past awards is really good. We did try to find out anytime there was a link to past applicants that were successful. We have that in there, so you can go check out, see what they did fund in the past. And that's a great way to kind of tailor your application. And then looking at the alternative funding sources. If these don't work out and they're on pause, you may have to look at some of the other sources. And that's kind of a little sheet or a little kind of a view of that comprehensive matrix that we have in the back. So again, as you start to move down the line, you might have to look at some of the secondary and some of the further down. And it doesn't mean they're bad options, but they didn't score as high for whatever reason. Contacting the program manager, so that's something I really recommend you do next, is you kind of figure out, yep, we kind of like these, let's get a hold of that program manager. They'll let you know if you guys are eligible. And if your project, your BMP or whatever piece of the project is eligible, you definitely want to make sure that that checks off. And then creating that strategy. So you kind of put together your funding sources, you've done your investigation, make sure they're still available. Find out on the grants calendar, when do these things come open? When do they end? When do we want to do the work? It's just because, that grant cycle is here. Sometimes it takes 6 to 12 months actually to get the money. I know we've got a client that it took them about a year to get their money. So you're kind of thinking way in the future about some of this. So check those timelines and then set up and sign up. A lot of these things have some preliminary stuff you can do, like grants.gov for any federal grants. You want to take care of all the registration, making sure you're set up to go. Sometimes it's really simple to apply online if you're ready to go. And then there's notifications, like Rob mentioned, you can sign up for notifications. They'll let you know when the grant cycle opens. So again, it's kind of being ready for when this stuff happens. Like I said, it's very dynamic right now, and it's also very competitive. And then when you're ready to go, it may require an official resolution from this board to show your commitment to providing the match funding. And sometimes that happens when you apply, you've got to have that resolution. And sometimes it's after they give you the award. So just be aware that that might be a requirement, and having your tracking system, if you have multiple grants, like your stacking, your grading, it can get really complex and knowing when I have to turn a report in. So there's a lot of compliance and reporting requirements that are involved. I did get through in 5 minutes, but I'm close. So I think what I'm going to do is turn over to Rob, and he's got this example scenario. So we thought, well, it's not in the report, but maybe we should give you an idea of how would you, so let's say you want to fund, alternative to, And what types of grant opportunities are available for each of those different BMPs? He's gonna kind of run through an example of that.
Thanks. So one thing real quick on the report, it is pretty long. Rodney did mention those cards in the back, I think those are pretty useful. Also, there's an executive summary. So, you know, a lot of that stuff in the middle is explaining like why we did what we did and what the method was, but there's a couple page executive summary and then those cards. And then I'm gonna, put Rodney out there. As you're going through it or in the future, you have a question, Rodney's in tune with what's changing with these grants and stuff like that, so I don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yeah, that's-
And you know, when something kind of changes with a grant, Rodney usually knows about it, so. But as Rodney said, we put this report together and kind of the one thing we thought, really would be nice is, I wanted to give you guys an idea of if there was a project, how would we put the grants together? To make it work, and when that happened, what kind of cost share would the NRD need to be kicking in? To match those grants. So we put this scenario, we didn't put it in the report because there's just so many variables that can impact it. That includes, you know, what grant funding, you know. There's, as Rodney said, things are always changing, so, you know, one grant might go away, another one might come in, one might have more money, so the amount of funding, might change. Also, what you guys wanna do as a project change, we fully understand that, you know, it's not like you're just gonna take one of those alternatives in the plans and just move forward with that, you know, that's just the concept. So that was the reason we didn't put it in the plan, but I did wanna, give an example. So you guys can kind of have a little bit more of a real world idea of what could be done. So again, we went back to those two concepts that I talked about. And we went with, for the example, we used the most current one, which was the 2024 alternative out of the water quality improvement study. And so that has, and it has the most it's most comprehensive, has the most features, also has the most current cost estimate, so that's why we used it. No other reason other than that, just give us something to work with. As I said, we put this together to illustrate an option, and but I want to skip down to the bottom there. There's numerous variables that could affect what I'm about to talk about here, and that includes, you know, the future availability of grants. It includes the changes in the alternative that actually wants to be, you guys want to implement. The cost estimates. We didn't come up with those cost estimates. I hope they're good, but you know, it's very conceptual. So there's, you know, definitely a fudge factor in there that, you know, that could change things. And then also lastly, these grants are competitive. So we've got a bunch of grants that we put into this example, but just because we put it in there and it fits, doesn't mean necessarily that you will be automatically get it. You know, it depends on what other projects are going and what funding is available. So to do this, I first broke up this alternative into 3 phases. So it could be, you know, instead of having 6.2 million all in one fiscal year, let's spread it. We put it in 3 phases. Phase 1 included the near lake detention ponds, and that had an estimated cost of about 1.5 million based on that study's cost estimate. Then phase 2 included the shoreline protection, the aquatic habitat structures, and the dredging. That was the most expensive phase by a fair amount at 3.6 million, and that's because dredging is a high cost item. But we wanted to match it with some other stuff, and I'll explain that when we get to phase 2, and that's why we have more than just the dredging. Then phase 3, we added in the treatment wetlands, the in-lake wetlands, and the island restoration, and that had a cost of approximately $1 million. So phase 1, we selected NDE 319 funding, the EPA regional source reduction assistant grants, which has a large and a small category. We picked the large, also a Friends of Reservoirs, grant and a National Fish and Wildlife Conservation Partners Program. So all those can kind of work together. And, you know, for example, like 319 funding has a certain match. Well, as long as we're not matching with state dollars, a lot of times we can use some other grant to match it. So that's how we ended up with getting on this first phase, $1.48 million in grant funding and only $60,000 in cost share, from you. That's probably good news, and then we'll go skip to phase 2, which is not as quite good news.
So then on these two, keep
Yeah.
in mind that, this is if you got the maximum amount, and you're lucky to get it all. This is kind of an ideal scenario, and we can take into account, you know, the matching amounts and stuff, so I think like Rob was saying, not to get your hopes up, but that there are options out there, because 6.2 sounds like a huge number to me. How can you get that down with some of these, you know, these BMPs, and so this is a way to kind of show you, this is the type of analysis you would go through.
Right,
To get that to that point.
And there's other grants too, like I said, there were 60 that we identified, so it's not just that these, you know, about 10 or 12 that we've identified are the only ones that you can go after. So phase 2, though, that includes the dredging. The issue with dredging is most grants consider that maintenance, not, you know, a new project type activity, so the funding isn't as good for it. And that is why we included those other 2 things, because then you end up getting the detention pond, no, it was the shoreline protection and the habitat improvements. Then you end up getting those pretty much 100% cost share or 100% funded, because you met your match with what you have to pay for dredging. Also, you know, Ronnie and I were talking. Just because I put this as phase 2 doesn't mean it couldn't be spread over more than one fiscal year. We looked at the DNR Water Sustainability Fund, the 5-star Urban Waters Restoration, which is through National Fish and Wildlife, BNSF grant, and the Water Smart Aquatic Restoration Program through the Bureau. So that ended up with $2.15 million in grant funding, and then there'd be a $1.4 million contribution from the NRD for that phase. Then phase 3, we've got the Friends of Reservoirs, again, the 5-star Urban Waters, a land conservation fund grant from Game and Parks, and now the small version of the EPA grant that we used in the first phase, and Conservation Alliance grant. And there we have total grants funding $690,000, and the NRD's cost share at $310,000. So if we add all those numbers up, we end up with our $6.1 million project being funded $4.3 million by grants and 1.8 by the NRD, which, you know, about 1.5 or 4, something like that, if that was dredging. But that's pretty, you know, that's a very important part of this whole endeavor. So with that, anything to add, Ronnie?
The only thing is, you know, we talked about the phasing, you know, the multiple fiscal years, that's a lot of money, so. Thinking of that comprehensive plan and how you might look further in the future to know how you, if you wanna do this, to parse that out. And then kind of spread that out a little bit, that would also help with some of your grants, so maybe instead of 3 phases, you have 6 phases, you know, you can do it all kinds of different ways, and this is looking at. Both the stacking and the weaving of the grants, so you have multiple grants at one time, or you might take a BMP out in phase 1 and do that, fund that with a grant. Maybe there's another one, you might do that separately, so kind of pulling that all together, so.
And the only other thing I guess I have to add is to say thank you for this opportunity. Excited to be part of this project, and you know, Rodney really got his hands in there, figuring all the grants, but like I said, the exciting part about it to me is, you know, the first step in improving the water quality in the lake and improving fishing and having more people use it and seeing it as a community resource. So thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
One real quick, if it's okay.
Go.
So on your list of grant possibilities, a few slides back, you had Nebraska Environmental Trust on there a couple
You got
different times.
slides on.
Oh, sorry. Nebraska Environmental Trust on there a couple different times, and you didn't mention them. And then And the only reason I asked that is I happened to serve on that board, left that board about 7 years ago. I know a lot of things have changed. I think maybe one remaining board member left. Staff is completely turned over. I was visiting with Marie a while back about, some of the availability of funds from that entity. It doesn't seem like they're granting, maybe a third as much as they did, when I was on that board. Can you, since you work in that area, can you kind of explain what's changed there and why that might not be a great funding source anymore?
Yeah, just because it's scored high doesn't mean it would be the best funding source, so. The priorities have changed, there's a huge ag focus right now, energy focused on ethanol. But I have, I know Mark. He's a farmer from, talked with him quite a bit, it is shifting just a bit, he said this year things are shifting, I think they didn't spend as much, and maybe there's a little bit of hand slapping, now we need to be using it for the right reasons, so I think, that could change again, but just because environmental pressure showed up 2 or 3 times, I thought that too, because it scored out pretty good. There could be another criteria that says, they're just not, over the last 3 years, they aren't funding these types of projects. So you might have to move down to your next one. You're right on the money for that. It's changing. But that's happening in a lot of places. But again, with landscaping and site and competition, it's always good to go back, especially if maybe they're shifting priorities again because they weren't given, they might. Game Parks was on there for their aquatic habitat. Last year, they decided to give out like 4 or 5 big chunks. This year, when I talked to them, they're going to get smaller. So every year things can change, depending on their program managers or the board members. Good, great point.
And if you end up looking at a multi-year project, it could change from the beginning, first phase to a last phase.
Then, yeah, that's-
So say we want to go ahead, with this phase 1. Your company, EA Engineering. They try to acquire these grants and put everything together for us, right? Is that the service that you do?
You can, or you can.
We have.
We have, yeah.
Okay, well, that's what I was wondering, whether, you would do that, or if it all comes back to our staff. I'm about to do that, so that's what I was wondering, whether you provide that, like all the service, probably for a fee.
Yeah.
Usually we like, we're really excited about, or I shouldn't say we, I as a design engineer, I'm really excited about designing the improvements. And so then I go to my boss and say, hey, let's maybe give them a low price on this to hopefully get work going in the right direction, so.
Any other questions, comments? I guess we're, back with Richard and Jackson. Committee, bring us their recommendations. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We go on to water regulations committee report. Kevin, I believe you're up.
Thank you all for bringing us back. Seems to be
Thank you. Thank you.
The Water Regulations Committee met Tuesday, April 8th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the NRD office. Those who participated are listed below. Committee members Bethune, Stahly, Otte, Peterson, Siebert, Stahr, and Miller. Other directors, staff, and guests are listed as well. Publication of legal notice of meeting was taken care of in the York News Times. And Chairman Siebert advised those present that the Open Meetings Act is posted at the entrance of the board. Action items, A, Aquifer Quality Well Abandonment Cost Share Assistance Program payments. 6 Aquifer Quality Well Abandonment Cost Share Assistance Program applications have been reviewed by staff and approved for final payment totaling $6,000. A list is attached. Motion to make cost share payments for 6 well abandonments as reviewed by the committee at a cost of $6,000. That motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner,
Yes.
Nuss,
Yes.
Bohaty,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Stahly, yes. Stahr,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Action item B, University of Nebraska Bethune study. An invoice was received in the amount of $35,972.32 for work completed November 1st, 2024 through February 28th, 2025 on the ongoing Bethune study in the district. Invoice is attached. Motion to pay University of Nebraska for work completed November 1, 2024 through February 28th, 2025 in the amount of $35,972.32. That motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Second. Questions, comments on this item? Roll call.
Kuehner.
Yes.
Nuss.
Yes.
Bohaty.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Perry.
Abstain.
Did I get you?
Yeah.
Okay. Stahly, yes. Stahr.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Bethune.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Eberspacher.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
That carried 13-1.
You two want to switch seats?
Action item C, water meter maintenance invoices. 2 invoices were received from Sanderson Irrigation for the servicing of 593 meters in the amount of $51,086.75 and $4,050 for a total of $55,136.75. Sanderson Irrigation has completed the meter maintenance in zone 1, which is 2 months ahead of previous years. A total of 1,895 meters were serviced. Invoices are attached. Motion to pay Sanderson Irrigation for meter maintenance performed on 593 meters in the amount of $55,136.75. That motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments, questions? Roll call.
Nuss.
Yes.
Otte.
Yes.
Perry, yes. Peterson.
Yes.
Stahly.
Yes.
Stahr.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Bethune. Yes. Anthony.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Eberspacher.
Yes.
Kuehner. Yes. Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Action item D, certification of irrigated acres. The committee reviewed the irrigated acres certification for 9 parcels totaling 621.92 acres, yielding an increase in irrigated acres of 39.48 acres. Total irrigated acres within the district is now 1,249,720.56 acres. Motion to certify acreage changes as president is presented to the committee. That motion carried 6 yes, 0 no, with 1 abstention, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Bohaty.
Abstain.
Perry, yes. Peterson.
Yes.
Stahly.
Yes.
Stahr.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Bethune. Yes. Anthony.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Eberspacher.
Yes.
Kuehner. Yes. Nuss.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Action item E, Wish Nebraska invoice. An invoice was received from Wish Nebraska in the amount of $7,581.60 for the purchase and replacement batteries for the AG 3000 meters. These are batteries for resale and will be billed to the operators they are replaced within the district's battery replacement program. Motion to pay Wish Nebraska for resale batteries for the AG 3000 meters in the amount of $7,581.60. That motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Second. Any comments, questions? Roll call.
Perry, yes. Peterson,
Yes.
Stahly,
Yes.
Stair,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Bethune. Yes. Anthony,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner. Yes. Nuss,
Yes.
Otte,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Action item F. Rule 5 adoption of revised rule effective May 16th, 2025. Staff emailed out the hearing transcript, from March 20th. And received comments from the Department of Environment and Energy and the Department of Natural Resources to the directors. Blank now provided the next steps in adoption of the revised rule. The committee was provided with a draft order amending rules document, which will need to be published in the paper for 3 weeks prior to the rules going into effect. The transcript of the hearing will be posted on the website along with the adopted rules. Staff will provide a completed copy in the packet for the board meeting. Motion to adopt the amended rules as published and adopt the Upper Big Blue Natural Resources District Order amending rules effective date of amendment, May 16, 2025. That motion carries 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments on this, questions?
Was there any written comments came in after the hearing?
Other than from the two departments, the two agencies, no.
From the public?
No.
No, there was no other comments that we received, written comments.
Okay. I don't know if there was, but then it did not see them, but okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, they have been out of the center.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Want to understand the motion? Anybody want it read again?
John. Why is this May 16th and I'm not?
It has to be published,
Published.
it has to be published for 3 weeks, and then it has to be 7 days after the last.
Oh, yeah.
Before it can be.
Yeah.
coming back.
Any other questions, comments? Everyone understands the motion, then want it read, roll call.
Peterson,
Yes.
Stahly,
Yes.
Stair,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Bethune. Yes. Anthony,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner,
Yes.
Nuss,
Yes.
Otte,
Yes.
Perry, yes, Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Action item G, rules enforcement update. Orders to cease and desist water use reports in phase 2 and 3 reporting. 4 operators have come into compliance with rule 5 by reporting their irrigation water use. And 1 for the phase 2 and 3 reporting. List is attached. Motion to lift the order of cease and desist on Todd S. Andreessen, Adam Fritz, water use only, Jason Preisler, Dallas Trester, Gene A. Schultz and Joanne Hoffer for coming into compliance with the Upper Big Blue Natural Resources District Rule 5. That motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Comments, questions? Roll call.
Stahly,
Yes.
Stair,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner, yes, Nuss,
Yes.
Otte,
Yes.
Perry, yes, Peterson,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Discussion and no action items. We have a Rule 5 allocation trigger and timing discussion. Staff provided the committee with a copy of the rules regarding allocation trigger and timing. After reviewing the current rule and the discussion on the intent and explanations from the directors who were on the board at the time, the general consensus seemed like the current rules regarding allocation, trigger, and timing provides the constituents and the board with understandable guidelines the district would follow if or when the trigger is reached. Rules enforcement update. Number 1, phase 2 and 3 reporting is now past due as of April 1st, and past due postcards have been sent. There are still 305 operators left to report as of the committee meeting. Water use reports. All the other water use reports have been mailed and the reports are coming in. Staff has set up other water users who also have the online option for reporting water use. Outstanding orders. There was a motion to enter into exec session to discuss possible litigation at 8:15, including all directors present. Eigenberg, Jules Guard, and legal counsel Blacktown were asked to stay. A motion was made to return to open session at 8:30 p.m. Both motions carried 7-0. Well permit summary. There were 7 well permits issued in March, and there are currently 12,255 active irrigation wells in the district. Documents are attached. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned at 8:35 p.m.
Thank you.
Harry, you know, is all the water meters that with the spring one. They are working on them right now. They are probably, they were over half done. We're probably about 3/4 done. All the water staff is out taking statics right now. So I'm actually within a couple weeks, we should have it done. I've noticed as the days go by, we're getting a lot of pivots going. That's why we've got everybody available is out doing statics. So if they've seen that well, or they assume they will take a measurement or what's.
It'll be noted that the well had run, so yes. And we'll take that out of the measurements, calculations for that. Sure.
Any other questions of the water committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I have one other thing. The statewide groundwater level monitoring report for 2024 is out. Is there any directors that would like to have a hard copy of this? I can order them, or it is also available online. So if you want one, you can show up hands and I can get some ordered. So
If you email us the address.
I can get you the address of where you can view it on. So
Again, does anybody want a hard copy?
okay, thank you.
Richard,
Since I'm having a difficult time talking, I asked that Vice Chairman Eberspacher give the report.
thank you.
Thank you, Richard. The Projects and Programs Committee met at 7 p.m. on Thursday, April 10th, 2025 at the NRD office in York, Nebraska. Those present were committee members Richard Bohaty, Andrew Eberspacher, Bill Kuehner, John Miller, Michael Nuss, Bill Stahly, Len Yates. Other directors were Paul Bethune, Anthony Bohaty, Doug Dickinson, and Teresa Otte. Staff members Drew Timbensel, Dave Eigenberg, Crystal Houston, Terry Jules Guard, Marie, and Jack Wergen. Action items, land treatment program. There were 6 new land treatment project applications. The committee reviewed the land treatment program funding for fiscal year 2025. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD approved payment of 1 completed NSWCP NRD land treatment project with a cost share of $10,000. 2 completed NRD cover crop projects with a cost share of $6,376, and 1 completed RO system project with a cost share of $416.99. Motion carried, 6 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Okay. And moved in second. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Stair,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner. Yes. Nuss.
Yes.
Bohaty,
Yes.
Perry, yes, Peterson,
Yes.
Stahly. Oops, excuse me, Miller,
Yes.
oh, yes, Stahly.
Yes. And Don voted yes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Action item B, hazard mitigation plan update. JEO Consulting has submitted the revised hazard mitigation plan to the Federal Emergency Management Agency and is awaiting comments. JEO submitted an invoice in the amount of $1,207.20 for work performed from January 22nd, 2025 to March 14th, 2025. The Nebraska Emergency Management Agency share is 75% or $905.40. The Upper Big Blue NRD, Hamilton County, Seward County, and York County will split the remaining 25% or $301.80, $75.45 each. The Upper Big Blue NRD will invoice the other agencies quarterly. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD approve payment of $1,207.20 to JEO Consulting Group for work completed on the Upper Big Blue NRD multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan update from January 22nd, 2025 through March 14th, 2025. Motion carried, 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Comments? Questions? Roll call.
Yates,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner,
Yes.
Nuss,
Yes.
Bohaty,
Yes.
Perry, yes, Peterson.
Yes.
Stahly,
Yes.
Stahr,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Discussion and no action items. Publication of legal notice of meeting. Chairperson Richard Bohaty reported that notice of the projects and programs meeting was published in the York News Times. Open Meetings Act. Chairperson Richard Bohaty advised those in attendance that the Meetings Act is posted by the entrance to the boardroom. Storm damage tree program. There was one new storm damage tree application. Private dams program. The Dave Fiala Private Dam Project in Butler County has started construction. Construction is planned to be completed by June 15th. The TM and DH Farms private dam west of Sutton is being designed by a private engineer. Site visit with contractors is scheduled for mid to late April. Nebraska Nitrogen Reduction Incentive Act. Staff gave the committee an update on the Nebraska Nitrogen Reduction Incentive Act. A total of 158 applications are currently enrolled with a total of 17,610 acres with $254,074.60 of cost shared. There may be additional acres added from applications that have dropped out. WQMP cover crop program cost share. Staff presented a draft revised WQMP cover crop program that increases the cost share to 100% of actual costs up to $75 per acre with a maximum of $7,500 per landowner/operator per year. Contract would be for a 3-year term and cooperators must plant cover crops 2 out of the 3 years. The area of the program would be the entire Beaver Creek watershed and the wellhead protection areas. See attached draft. Applicants will be prioritized by very high runoff risk areas, wellhead protection areas, and the remainder of the Beaver Creek watershed. There's attached draft. Discussed keeping payment rate of $75 per acre for selected applications, changing term to 1-year contract, and setting an application due date. A set date for prioritizing applications could be August 1st or September 15th. Staff will revise draft program and will present revised draft at May Projects and Programs Committee meeting. WQMP Land Treatment Program Cost Share. Staff presented a revised draft WQMP Land Treatment Program, which expands the eligible lands to the high-risk runoff areas and the high-risk runoff areas of the entire Beaver Creek watershed. Cost share would be provided at 90% up to a maximum of 15,000. Committee will address at the May meeting with the WQMP cover crop program. There's an also see attached draft. WQMP interlocal agreement with the Central Platte NRD. The upper portion of the Upper Big Blue NRD's WQMP target area of the Beaver Creek watershed extends beyond the west boundary of the Upper Big Blue NRD into a portion of the Central Platte NRD in Hall County. Staff has drafted an interlocal agreement between the Upper Big Blue NRD and the Central Platte NRD in order to offer NRD programs across NRD boundaries. Amendment 1 would allow acres located in the Central Platte NRD to participate in Upper Big Blue NRD's WQMP programs. The Upper Big Blue NRD has a similar agreement with the Lower Platte South NRD for areas in the Branch Oak watershed. Central Platte NRD is currently reviewing the draft agreement. Agreement will be addressed at the May Projects and Programs Committee meeting. Baldwin Dam cured in place pipelining. Subsurface Inc. was on site at Baldwin Dam on March 27th and March 28th and completed the cured in place pipeline lining of Baldwin Dam. Staff presented before and after photos of the project. Staff is planning to include a couple more CIPP lining projects for the board to consider, which will be included in the fiscal year 2026 budget. Additional information, Recharge Lake, grant/funding research. EA Engineering will be giving a presentation on the Recharge Lake grant funding research project at the April board meeting. 2, household ag and agricultural hazardous waste collection. City of Seward Storage Lot 880 South Columbia, Seward, 8 to noon, and Butler County Fairgrounds, 62 L Street, David City, 1:30 to 4:30. And additional information, item 3 is the birding event at the Teal View Wetland Education Area, May 3rd, 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. The meeting was adjourned at 7:55 p.m.
Thank you. Bill.
On that household disposal,
Yeah,
there was a lot of pissed off people. They go to early.
9:30.
They did that to make room on the truck to get to David City, and the truck never even came to David City, so Crystal and I stood at David City and turned people away.
Yeah.
We need another household cleanup with a lot more money and a bigger truck.
Well, there was a lot of stuff.
There was.
Different ranges. But boy, it sure went quick.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good thing if we try to figure out another grant funding and see. Did you check, Crystal? Did we have any monies left?
No, we do not. We actually went slightly over the allotted amount. So yeah, there was just a huge amount of demand. I did a little bit of research because we did have, like you said, some people who were pretty frustrated that they, came out and were turned away because we ran out of capacity. I was doing some research to find out where we could tell them to take their stuff elsewhere in the state, and there isn't a place. Unfortunately, if you don't live in Lancaster County or in the Omaha area, there is not a place where you can take those materials outside of these one-off events. So I'm not going to be here to do it in the future, but I do recommend that you guys continue this because there is definitely a need. There are people that came who were so grateful to think that they were going to have an opportunity to get rid of some of those agrochemicals that they didn't even know what they were supposed to do with. So
who was the contractor we used?
it was called Tradabi and it was out of Iowa.
If you don't know of any other ones.
I have a whole list of other ones that you could get quotes from if you wanted to use a different vendor next time. We went with this one specifically because we were doing this event in tandem with the Four Corners Health Department so that we could reduce our costs because they charge a mobilization and transportation fee. And utilizing the already existing grant funds that Four Corners had, we were able to save some money. And so that's why we used that same vendor. But if we wanted to do a standalone event in the future and use whatever vendor we'd like, or work in tandem with Four Corners again, and utilize, and they already had a vendor picked when we got on board with them. But there could be opportunity to discuss a different vendor in the future because there are other vendors available. And I know next year, Four Corners is planning to do an event in York County and Polk County. And they did express interest in collaborating with us again in the future. And I did have a lot of folks, and I know Teresa heard these comments too, that people were very interested in having an event in York and Polk County specifically.
The Four Corners is the four counties. Seward, York.
Correct.
Polk.
Yeah, so we have a good level of overlap with their, service area.
We did have some comments of David City. Max Burkle was there, and I know he's with the supervisors. And he mentioned that Louise up at the extension office is good at writing some grant funding things too. They've done tires and things in the past. So there might be an opportunity, at least in that area, and maybe somebody else to do something with some of the extension offices.
What was our expenses in this?
I mean, the grant funded everything but about $1,000.
Any other questions or comments on that item? Sounds like it's a needed thing to continue to look at. Any other questions for Richard or? No, we'll go on to the next committee, Bill.
The executive committee met at 8 p.m. on Thursday, April 10th, 2025 at the NRD office in New York. Committee members present were Miller, Kuehner, Dickinson, Bethune, Bohaty, Otte, Siebert, and Yates. Board Chair Miller acknowledged that we published the legal notice of the committee meeting on April 1st, 2025 in New York News Times. Miller advised those in attendance that the Open Meeting Act is posted by the entrance to the boardroom. Action item A, director's first quarter per diem and expenses. The executive committee reviewed the director's per diem and expenses for this past quarter. The first quarter director's per diem is $8,470 and expenses are $4,401.33 for a total expenditure of $12,871.33. Individual expense vouchers were available. They're right here if anybody wants to look at it. Motion to approve payment in the first quarter 2025 director's per diem of $8,470 and expenses of $4,401.33 for a total of $12,871.33, and to publish these approved expenditures in the March financial report. Except that each director who has per diem and or reimbursement of expenses included in such financial report abstains from voting for the approval of his or her own per diem and or expense reimbursement. The motion carried a yes or no, that's all.
Second. Did you catch it second?
I guess I wrote it down because it was right here. But
Okay, all right, as long as you go. Questions, comments on this? Roll call.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner,
Yes.
Nuss,
Yes.
Bohaty,
Yes,
Perry, yes, Peterson,
Yes.
Stahly,
Yes.
Stahr,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item B, invoice from Midwest Spray Foam and Custom Installation. An invoice from Midwest Spray Foam and Custom Installation LLC has been received for a total of $514,500 for office building roof insulation and ventilation. There were no work order changes to the original agreement. Motion to pay Midwest Spray Foam in construction in custom installation LLC of a total of $514,500 for the office building roof insulation and ventilation. The motion carried, 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Dave, do you want to explain that?
Yeah, the second, I was trying to figure out who gave the second. Was it
Eberspacher.
okay?
Again,
Thank you. Yeah. On Friday after our committee meeting, I met with Eileen at 10 o'clock here in the office. We did a walk around of the entire office. She has submitted a certification of substantial completion, which means that as soon as the contractor signs it, the board chairman signs it, that's when our 2-year warranties begins. So if they don't sign it till the end of the month, then it will start the end of the month. She said there was about, well, there was 2 spots that need to have some paint put on them. And then she identified several ceiling tiles that she wasn't happy with, that she needed to have either touched up with white paint or recut totally. But she said all the work could be done in warranty. And so she has sent an email to me saying that she has released the substantial work completion. Questions?
They'll sign it for a year.
Probably next month.
think no other questions, or comments, roll call.
Anthony,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner,
Yes.
Nuss,
Yes.
Bohaty,
Yes.
Perry, yes, Peterson,
Yes.
Stahly,
Yes.
Stair,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item C, Burke Scholarships. The Scholarship Selection Committee consisting of directors Otte, Stahr, and Stahly met April 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. to review scholarship candidates. In 2025, we received 8 applications. 2 applications did not meet one of the required criteria for their award. They were pursuing, part of the application is you have to pursue a career in natural resources. Applicants came from Hastings, Henderson, Kuehner, Waco, Seward, and York. The selection committee recommended Evan Frank of Hastings and Sid Weiss Hop and Garrett Ostrander of Kuehner was selected as the alternate. Frank will graduate from Adams Central High School in 2025. He is planning to major in agriculture economics at UNL. Weishart is a 2024 graduate of McCool Junction Public Schools. He is majoring in agronomy at UNL. Ostrander will graduate from Seward High School in 2025. He is planning to major in plant landscape systems at UNL. Committee chairperson Otte provided the committee's recommendation for Evan Frank of Hastings, Sarah Weishart of Henderson, Garrett Ostrander of Kuehner as an alternate. Motion to award 2 $2,000 scholarships, one to Evan Frank and one to Sarah Weishart of Henderson, and to name Garrett Ostrander as the alternate scholarship recipient. The motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Yates. Again, I want to thank the committee. I know it's not an easy job. I appreciate the work you put in on that. Any other comments, questions? Roll call.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner,
Yes.
Nuss,
Yes.
Bohaty,
Yes.
Perry, yes, Peterson,
Yes.
Stahly,
Yes.
Stair,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Bethune,
Motion carried.
Item D, review of, these are no action items. Review of budgeted positions. Eichenberg provided a copy of the 2025 salary schedule and operating policy number 17 as a starting point for discussion. The board's concerns focus on the percentage of employee compensation compared to the total budget. For this discussion, employee compensation is defined as salary, FDIC taxes, and benefits. Being a service and regulatory agency, salaries do make up a major portion of the budget. It is Eichenberg's opinion, given the policies, programs, regulations that we provide, the level of staffing is not excessive. If the board wishes to reduce the budget, management sees two options: a reduction in voluntary program funding or a workforce reduction. While the board retains the authority to authorize each staff position, it is the responsibility of the general manager to recommend the staffing levels and positions necessary to carry out the policies, programs, and regulations of the district. A suggestion was made to combine position duties to reduce our workforce. Management has tried to hire individuals with specific skill sets to meet the job descriptions. Most of the time, these skill sets are not interchangeable. Another suggestion is to identify positions where their workload is not sufficient for a 40-hour week. The workload is cyclical. There are times of the year when the staff are less busy than other times, but Eichenberg's opinion, with engaged management assigning tasks to staff, there is sufficient work to keep all busy year round. If there is additional programming, i.e. water allocations or land treatment enhancements, there's a possibility that additional staff may be needed. The board approves the salary schedule annually. If it is the board's wish that a workforce reduction should occur, the board has the option to eliminate any proposed position from the salary schedule. If the board feels that a reduction in a budget is necessary outside of the workforce, give management a proposed percentage for the reduction during the budget cycle. This proposed reduction needs to be established by the majority of the board, and management would like to have this directive provided in a motion and a vote in the full board setting. Eichenberg agrees that it's the board's responsibility to set the budget. Staff will provide input and budget drafts, but once the annual budget is adopted, it is management's job to oversee the spending. Item E, public relations update. It will probably be held in August of this year, and it'll be in the southwest portions of the district. You guys, any board members have any suggestions? I think we could probably still give them in a date. Do you have any dates that work or don't work? Contact Crystal. Dave, personnel report.
Excuse me. I reported last Thursday that I had hired Rashid Green to be the seasonal maintenance position. He failed to show up on Saturday. So we are going to have to internally take care of it for a while until we re-advertise or figure out something else. So last week, the maintenance department split duties, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. Because of the Easter weekend, several of them wanted to go to church this week. We had one volunteer from the maintenance department to take Easter weekend. Then we'll have to refigure it out after that. But I interviewed the guy. I called him twice on the phone. Nancy tried numerous times to contact him on the phone. We texted him, we emailed him, and he was just a no-show Saturday morning. So that's all I can say on that. But we will have a weekend. We will have a weekend be seen out to the recreational areas on the weekend. It will be a NRD pickup. I'm not right now going to tell you which staff member is going to be there on which days. Forestry, we had a discussion about the verbal offer that's been extended to someone by UNL. I have not been notified whether he has accepted it or not. But I anticipate that he has, or else I would have been told. The second thing is we've received a letter of resignation this week from our Hamilton County NRCS secretary. She has indicated that she will be without
She was not good. She was on FMLA care for her husband. She's near retirement age, but she just decided he needs more care, so she's just not going to return. She's gonna go ahead and submit her resignation and retire.
So that leaves two positions, one with the PR position that I would like to have a consensus of the board to go ahead and let me advertise for the PR position and for the NRCS secretary position in Hamilton County.
I would so move.
Second,
Second.
I didn't ask them for it. I just said it consensus. It's not an actionable.
Yeah, it's not on the line.
I just,
You're right.
But I don't think we can act on it because it's not on the.
I just wanted a consensus that, you know, we're going to go ahead.
you want to show our hands or?
That's up to the chairman. I don't think that's legal either.
Okay. Just,
I would be in favor of it.
Okay.
Have we looked at partnering with another NRD on this position?
With the PR position,
Yes.
I contacted Central Platte NRD. They do not have any, extra staff time to donate to our needs, is how he put it. So no, and I was told to go west. I have not gone east to Lower Platte South or Lower Platte North. Okay, anybody else want to?
I have an opinion on this. I guess the secretary in Hamilton County, that I don't really have an opinion on, but the PR position was quite a discussion. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have it, but there's been a lot of discussion about it. And I don't really know, if you advertise, that means that the board will have a chance to say no to it.
The board would have the opportunity to take the funding away at budget cycle. But that puts me in a real bad situation if I interview, offer to somebody, they come and are here till July 1st, which is when the budget cycle starts. And then to have the funding.
Crystal hasn't given her a formal date.
That's correct. I have not advertised it yet either.
July 1st is only 2 months away, I guess. I mean, what time play it out?
Okay. Is that the consensus? I'm hearing two different sides here.
In committee the other night, it was, put it through committee.
So wait another month before advertising.
Our idea was to get somebody here.
Yeah,
To start the training.
right.
Well, I really feel the board should talk about this more, because there was a lot of devices. My brother's name was voice tonight, but we talked about this. I feel like if we do this, it's really, there's definitely two opinions on this.
Can we have a show of hands to see where the board's at? It's not.
Yeah.
You can't have straw polls.
I'm not gonna ask for it, no.
Can we go back to committee and then make a motion? Like if,
Yeah.
I think some of us thought we'd like to see it on the agenda
It was on the agenda.
to vote about, like, I mean, to have it bring it, like making a motion to.
There was no motion brought.
No motion made. It was on the agenda and no motion was made.
Well, somebody did make a comment, but he wasn't on the committee and it just wasn't, it happened so quick. I'd like to see it go through committee one time. Andrew Eberspacher made a comment about something about not doing things and we didn't think quick enough. I mean, it really would be unfair to you if we would. You interview someone and then we decide, there's enough people that we don't. Put you forward, that would make you work, so, and couldn't we just wait one more month? I'm just one person, but that's how I feel about it.
What about the NRCS position, secretarial position? Let's not.
I don't have a position on that, so.
We have to go with who reports. Does Josh want to say anything?
Well, I will say though, they've already been without somebody for 12 weeks. Well, because that's probably where I'm at, he was on FMLA for nearly 12 weeks, so they have to, I think Josh was trying to have one of the other secretaries come up and help, like one day, just try to have to use them kind of on the files and stuff, but that puts it behind quite a bit of time.
I didn't realize it'd been that long. I'm sorry, Josh.
That's okay.
Tell us what's going on.
She has been on FMLA. I guess I'd start by saying, it wasn't a decision that was taken lightly by her. She does not want to leave her position, it just health conditions have not allowed her to remain there. And we were hopeful that things would work out, and so was she. It's came to a point that she's not able to, feels like she's not gonna be able to come back. But we have been went after there, and we have been trying to share those duties. But it doesn't work out well with the duties that are associated with those things, such as when we're in the field and things like that, having somebody in the office to take care of those things. The other clerical type things, we have been sharing those duties and been able to get by without having somebody there. And we do greatly appreciate those positions. They're honestly the face of our office when people come in. And Dave and I've had this conversation a number of times, but our goal is when they walk through that door, they don't know that we're NRCS or NRD, and so we get a lot of paperwork that comes through our door for the NRD, and they don't know the difference, and we make sure that it needs to be here. So it is a very important position for us.
And you are one short of NRCS staff there also, right?
We are one short there.
I guess that's going on in your report, so I'll let you fill that out later, but.
Comment, John?
Yeah.
I was just gonna kind of add to what Josh says. I don't know anything about the Hamilton County position, and Butler has nothing to do with us necessarily. But I do know we have kind of the same issue in Butler County, and one of the questions I got today, it is so frustrating as a producer to go into those offices, and there's nobody there to even talk to. So I don't have an opinion either way on Hamilton County, what they need, but I do know that from the producer standpoints, it gets pretty frustrating trying to accomplish things and you have no idea when to go in, who's gonna be there. And, the guys are out and the staff's out in the field, it really does kind of put everybody in a bind, but that's an opinion I had.
We do have an issue or part of Butler County.
Yeah,
We pay 40-some%, I believe, something like that.
but we don't, yeah,
No,
they don't want to show up either.
I guess I haven't heard any negatives on the secretary. But I would like to be our position. We make a decision latest of next month.
I would agree that, yeah, by next month, we better have something decided one way or the other, so we know how to proceed. But
I've been aware of 3 PR people in this organization. 2 of them since I've been on the board. And everyone has got better. So it's gonna be tough to replace Crystal. But everybody's replaced, so. Anything else? Committee?
The monthly financial statements attached, I guess
I'm talking about. Oh, no. He is on. Oh, financial, part of the.
And then the Kansas, Nebraska Big Blue River Compact meeting is May 7th, 2025 in the Upper Big Blue Natural Resource District. In this room from 9 to 12:30. Encourage you to attend that. Hopefully we'll rain so we all can. And you can see the list of upcoming events. The meeting adjourned at 9:20. That concludes my report.
And if you have the opportunity, May 7th, is being close. I feel it's a very interesting meeting. Interesting the differences between the two states. Will handle their issues. You can make it, and encourage you to. Now we can go to the financial statement. I believe that was emailed out. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it, but I'll give you a few minutes to look at it now. Do you have any comments?
Okay, just reading through the recharge watershed, what's IMP stand for? Is this some of the stuff that we're looking at doing out there? Is that what's on the sinking fund project?
Okay, yes, we have some money in the sinking fund that we could start the process. We could use it as cost share for a federal grant match. That is tax dollars that has been put aside in years past for specific projects of recharge. O&M, without going through the whole list, there's a whole list of sinking fund categories.
Okay, so does that have to be with a federal match, you said only? A federal grant match or not?
Depends on the state dollars. This is local tax dollars.
Okay,
So we would have to check with the grantor before we got too serious, because this is tax dollars. And typically they don't like tax dollars matching tax dollars.
But they could be used on a non-governmental grant.
okay.
Kellogg's or Cargill or something, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial statement and pay the bills.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Eberspacher,
Yes.
Kuehner. Yes. Nuss.
Yeah.
Bohaty,
Yes.
Perry, yes. Peterson,
Yes.
Stahly,
Yes.
Stahr,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, Josh, if I haven't stole all your thunder, go ahead.
This is that.
Can you get
This one's not working very well either, honestly. Here, let's get on this one.
Good evening. Going through some of the projects and such that we're able to work on. We were able to get enough moisture this year that with some of our structural practices in Seward County, we were able to get some implementation in on those. Which was, we didn't think we were gonna be able to do that, so. Going to our funding of programs, RCPP, we have a couple of those already obligated, working on a couple more of those, getting those finished up. We had kind of skipped ahead and started working on our local funding, getting some of those obligated as quickly as we could, so we had those funds secured. we had originally started out with about 290,000 here in the NRD to allocate. And then we were able to request an additional amount, so we got an additional 160,000. For this NRD for equip, so. We're sitting at about 450,000. Total dollars right now. We're unsure if we'll get additional funds, but we have put a request out for additional funds, so. Right now, the initial large allocation that we originally were geared up for, the IRA funds, are still on hold. Not able to really speak on whether or not we're gonna get those or not, but. Listening to the media, things like that, sounds like they're still out there, so. I wouldn't hold your breath, but we're hopeful that we may get at least some additional funds, but. It's all speculation at this time. Other work that we're starting to work on our compliance reviews. As you know, as soon as crops get in the ground, we're able to go out there. After seeing what I saw tonight, we may have some work to do. There may not be residue around here like there was, so that was quite interesting. So, but those compliance reviews, if you hear from producers or you get one yourself, those letters should be getting either are out or be getting out to the producers for us to review those 10% that are selected by FSA. So, we'll be going out and doing those reviews. As far as staffing update, you know, we've had 2 positions that have been impacted by the current conditions. We have a SWOCON that we had hired but didn't get filled there in Aurora that we talked about earlier. And then we also had a position that somebody had chose to leave up in Osceola. So they were originally ripped, offered to come back into that position, and then has chose to leave since then. So just personal decisions there. So there hasn't been any hirings or firings within our agency per se yet, but or if there will be, like I said, it's all speculation, we don't know, but this person has chose to separate, so. Those 2 positions we'll have available, well, maybe we won't, I don't know. But those 2 on our current staffing plan are open, so. Other than that, it's gonna be, you know, similar as I said last time, I have nothing to tell you for sure, on budgets, staffing, things like that, everything's speculation at this time. We do currently have a meeting either with my supervisor, I meet with my supervisor once a week. And with the state conservationist about bi-weekly at this point in time, so. Positives that we have, a chief in place at this time, so. They just recently took their oath, so as they get accustomed to their position and start understanding our agency a little bit better, we'll see how that goes, so just. They have to, I think it's gonna take a little bit for them to get into their comfort zone and understanding everything before we see any changes. So. Questions?
Okay, question? Thank you. Oh, we got it updated.
Only thing I have is the upcoming basin tour will be up in our area that is based off Valentine. I haven't seen anything for registration. That seems good. I know they said the piece stay at 2 hotel, so. That's all right. Just that question.
Question. Well, I could add one thing to the Paul. In front of your microphones is a report from the Washington DC trip. What I did, I copied off the agenda, and then the ARD staff supplies a written report. I accompanied that. I'd like to say a few things. uncertainty. That's the big word in DC right now. In fact, there were very few slides that were shared this year because they were worried about what they were going to put into the slides and what was going to happen. So there isn't a whole lot of slide sets like what's been done in the previous years. What was probably the most interesting to me is this was the week that the tariffs came out. And we had a long discussion from the commodity groups on what impact the tariffs really would have on our exports and on the bottom lines of the farmers. That was very interesting in my part. Then on the Wednesday, we had the Nebraska breakfast. We had all 5 of our delegations that spoke at the breakfast, and then we take the 50 people that come and go over to the visitor center, rent a room, and then instead of having everybody go and lobby individual senators or congressmen, the senators and congressmen come to us, and we have it in a little bit formal setting that way. But right now, like Josh would say, we really don't know what's going to happen in DC right now. It's uncertain. So I'll try and answer any questions about it. I do thank the opportunity of the board to send me. I think it's very beneficial to be up there. I think it's important to have your face seen, and it is an NARD function. Like I said, there was about 50 Nebraska delegates there. So we had a real good turnout.
Dave, what portion of those delegates are staff and what portion ballpark or directors?
The majority of the delegation this year was Lower Loop. Lower Loop brought 22 directors. Well, 22 directors and guests. I better back that up. They had some spouses in there too. So 22 was the number. There was 15, I think, general managers or assistant managers present. So I would say the majority of the delegation was elected official, not the paid gun to be there.
That's interesting. It's just, I've been able to be a part of a number of those slides, and it's just always interesting to me how that focus, whose voice that entity chooses to use. Is it the elected official, or the farmer, grain farmer, that person, or is it that to use Dave's phrase, the hired gun, the staff person, the lobbyist. It's been interesting over the years that I've been involved in stuff like that to see there is, unfortunately, in my opinion, been a shift away from on the ground producers and towards the staff member carrying that message to DC. That's just an observation that I made being a person. So that's why I asked the question. I'm just curious.
Any other comments, questions? If not, public comments. Anyone may comment on any matter not on the agenda. However, no board action can be taken until the following board meeting, according to the Nebraska Open Meeting Act, unless the board declares it an emergency. Is there anyone who'd like to speak? Seeing none, Chairman really doesn't have anything to add, whatever. You appreciate Ron showing up
John?
tonight?
Yeah, I would just, as we move forward and look towards the budget, I just think everyone on the board should kind of think of something they may be interested in cutting. I would throw out Project Grow myself as an item to look at reducing. Just to make sure that we keep our property taxes in check.
Remember, some of that stuff is grant funded.
But you have to find that fine line.
Yeah, right. Any other comments? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those with the same sign, we are adjourned.